StubbsYardbarker.com. Chase, William, and Kyle, top two in the points. They both led a ton of laps this year. They've won some races. You're not very far behind them. But what do you feel like you need to do to, like them, maybe lead more and also get to victory lane and snap that winless streak?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that go into that. You know, it's a little bit of everything, you know, truthfully. But I think probably the biggest one is qualifying. You know, really, I think the qualifying thing is you know, so important and an area that I've struggled in. You know, no doubt. And you know, so when I look at some of the races, you know, I look at Michigan. Right, I thought Michigan was a really good example. We got ourselves up front, and you know, when that happened, I thought we were super competitive. You know, and it was like night and day. You know, from running around 10th to 20th, and you know, just in a lot of traffic and starting runs and traffic, and it can really just dictate what your car drives like. So, you know, I think being up front, having a really good pit stall, you know, keeping yourself up there, you know, it can change the complexion of your day in such a large way nowadays that, you know, it can really be overlooked. So, you know, I think that would be, you know, the really top of mind for me as I look at what's one thing that we can do to help ourselves, and I think that's probably it.
We'll go over here in the middle as well.
Same with StubbsYardbarker.com. Carson, if you and Ricky are around each other tomorrow, should you find yourselves racing each other, are you going to give him a wider berth than you would normally?
Probably.
And then you mentioned you've seen these scenarios play out before, just as a fan. With everything going on for you on the track with good finishes, but also some off-track stuff, making some guys in the garage maybe a little unhappy, do you see it as an example of a young driver kind of taking your licks as you try to grow and mature?
Jesus. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, you know, I've just been a fan for, you know, forever, right? And you always saw the rookie get pushed around and, you know, just kind of have to pay their dues. And, you know, I was just like, man, if I'm ever in that spot, I'm never gonna get pushed around, or, man, like, you know, that's how you lose opportunities of races. You know, you never know how long you're gonna be in the garage for one. You never know how long, you know, none of us, you know, have a, you know, shot clock waiting on us. You know, you never know. So for me, like, I want to take advantage of every opportunity I have out there, and have no regrets of the effort I put in, and you know, maybe at times instead of just not letting myself get pushed over, I'm trying to push other people over, and that was the wrong mindset or wrong decision at times. But the biggest thing for me was just I didn't want to leave anything on the racetrack that, you know, that I would, you know, looking back long after, you know, I could have won here, or we could have ran really good here, or maybe my career would have been differently if I, you know, came out of the gate as good as we did, you know, because I lost the opportunity, and then, you know, who knows. But you know, as long as I was just putting 100%, you know, I wouldn't have any regrets on how anything turned out. So just sometimes when you're going 110, that's you know, that's sometimes where you're like, I didn't really need to do that part.
Samuel, StubbsYardbarker.com. Shane, that win obviously last week locks you into the postseason. Have you given any thought at all? Have you looked at the first round of the playoffs and looked at that schedule to try to sit down with Steven and your team and figure out maybe, you know, what's our game plan for that first round?
Yeah, I had to look what tracks it was, and pretty daunting. Yeah, yeah, Bristol's a tough track. Gateway, you know, I've never been there, but it's two left-handers by the looks. And then, yeah, what's the other track? Darlington, which I'm okay at, but yeah, certainly it's going to be really, really tough first round. But by then, hopefully, you know, we've got 10 weeks to keep getting better and building up. So, yeah, looking forward to getting there and having a crack, trying to get through.
You mentioned 10 weeks left. Two of those races are road courses, going to Chicago and then going to Sonoma very next week. There probably would have been an emphasis on those for you anyway, even in a must-win situation for the playoffs. But now that you're locked in, those are chances for you to build playoff points. Is that going to be something you're looking at, maybe going for the win as opposed to a stage win, or a stage win as opposed, you know, to like a 15th place finish? Does that change your strategy at all, your postseason outlook?
Yeah, it may do. You know, that's what happened last year in the Xfinity. We started sacrificing a little bit of track position to trying to accumulate points because they're pretty important in that first round. So, yeah, it may change it, but also winning races is pretty cool too. So we'll probably just try and keep putting ourselves in the best position to win those ones.
Okay, we'll go to the back right side here.
Samuel Stubbs, YoBarker.com. Joey, I remember talking to you in Chicago last year about your championship hopes at that point. That was a week after you'd won at Nashville. Well, that was still the point of the year where you hadn't quite turned up the speed dial yet. This year, winning earlier, showing more speed, running up front more consistently, do you feel better about your championship hopes at this point in the season, or as a team that's popped up when they're not necessarily expected to and found a way to win these championships? Is there just always a sense of we can do it no matter how much speed we're showing at any given moment?
Yeah, the latter, for sure. I mean, it seems like you can never count the 22 out. We seem to show up when it matters the most, more times than not. Doesn't always happen that way, right? But we put a lot of effort in to try to make it that way, and we think all the races count, to be honest with you. But obviously, the stakes are a little higher as the playoffs rolls around, and so I feel solid about where we're at. It's the same team pretty much as what we had last year. So the guys know how to do it. They know how to handle the pressure when it's turned up. So we should be fine.
Yep.
Samuel Stubbs, YoBarker.com. Denny, no JGR cars in the top 10 in practice. All 40 all and Ray, top 10 qualifying. Was this a situation where the cars were just set up for qualifying and trimmed out, and you're going to try to fix it for race trim, or was there maybe something more wrong in race trim than you realized?
Yeah, good question. It actually, we all missed it, with our simulation and whatnot. Probably this week we all work around the same thing, and then when we show up and they were able to work off of me since I was in the first group, so they saw that my balance was off, and so they were able to make some adjustments for that Group B practice, but it wasn't quite enough. They needed really the more time, which was the time between qualifying or practice and qualifying, to get it to where the balance where it needed to be. So I'm confident that everyone's going to be better now.
Necessarily when it's unexpected, but in situations like that with your first time seeing a racetrack.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I've done a lot to prepare myself for this, and the people at Chevy, Josh Wise, Scott Speed, I never feel like I show up to a racetrack and I'm like, man, I'm nervous. I don't know what I'm going to do. I always have a plan showing up to a new racetrack, and I showed that today. I went out for practice and I rolled out and I was third on the first lap. Never seeing the place before, and it's not easy to do that, right? I was wide open going down into one, and I'm like, man, this is fast. You kind of just have to trust the simulator and trust your notes and what you've seen and watched. And I don't overdo it. I try to get myself an idea of what I'm going to do when I show up to the racetrack without having to overthink about it. A lot of guys watch so much film and watch so much SMT and drown themselves in it that they have this cold or stone cut plan that when I show up I'm going to do XYZ, and things can change. So it's just about staying on your toes and being prepared no matter what the situation is. And I feel like I did a good job just accepting every situation I was put in today and trying to run my next best corner.
You mentioned accepting the positions you were put in today. Obviously, we know restarts here can get crazy. There was a lot of them with that rash of yellows that we had. And you go back to races like Coda earlier this year when you had the penalty and had to come back through the field. How are you at 18 years old and a driver that's still relatively new on the scene able to stay calm and able to, I guess, maturely get through situations that other guys might fold in, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, I've folded more times than I should be able to count this year, so I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but it's just a matter of preparing and not letting any situation be too big. Those restarts can be chaotic and nerve-wracking, especially when you're up there at the front racing for a win. But I treat this race or any race just the same. I don't overthink it. I just run my next best corner and hope that what I do works out for me. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. And today it worked out, and I'm glad it did. But there's a lot that goes into preparing for these moments, and I do my best to be ready for anything that gets thrown at me.
Delivering one of the greatest owners in NASCAR history a victory, adding another driver, I guess, to those that he's won with.
Yeah, it's super special and just humbling. First off, that out of all the people that coach picked me, I'm sure that there was a lot of people kind of scratching their head, even internally. I'm sure that when he said, hey, I think we should go with this guy, and for him to, feel validated is a great thing, as a driver, to know that your boss is happy with you. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the list of, Hall of Famers that have gotten to drive for Coach Gibbs and to get in victory lane, the fact that I'm going to be on that, honestly pretty short list is pretty special. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, literally as a kid, I talk about it all the time. I would play my sprint car game in a Joe Gibbs Home Depot uniform, and just being a diehard Tony Stewart fan now to be able to deliver victory for Coach is pretty special.
I think we've kind of been talking about. It's the people, and I think everything. For instance, with Chris Gale, we had signed his contract when things weren't going well a year ago, because we just think the world of him, and we decided to make that change that we made, and he's jumped right into the 11th spot. The other part of it is, everybody knows here, we took Chris Gapehart, moved him to competition director. So we, inside of our race team, we were doing a lot. And so I think all those moves were really, thought over, prayed over, but we got great people, and we made those changes. And you're never sure in pro sports. It's so hard. But it certainly has been rewarding for us so far this year.